Hello there. My name is Chevy Miller, and my title for my persuasive speech is called "The Case for Reparations." Now, I know this topic is very controversial and is divisive amongst many Americans, but it's a topic that I feel very passionate about. So I thought that I would take a stab at it and tell you why I am pro reparations. So in doing some research, there is a woman by the name of Lisa Giuliani, and she wrote a piece called "The United States Isn't a Country, it's a it's a corporation." Sorry. She educates us by saying that the United States is a giant corporation, meaning that the president is the CEO, the states are subsidiaries, and the people are employees. The government, and for a fact the colonial back in the day, made its money on taxing goods and services, and slaves were one of those goods that were taxed in the form of property taxes and import taxes. There is a gentleman by the name of Joel S. Newman, writer of Slave Tax is Sin Tax, 18th and 19th century perspectives. Yeah. And he tells us again that the U.S. profited on slavery by collecting taxes on slavery in the form of property or import taxes. And as we, many of us well know, that slaves were subjected to many types of forced labor without pay, being illiterate, murdered, raped, forced to have unwanted pregnancies, beatings, humiliations, and mutilations. Their injustices even went as far as being stripped of their ancestral family name, and also being stripped away from the newly formed families. Now, what this means to the descendants of the African Americans nowadays is that we have again a loss of our original family name. We don't know who our ancestors are. It's very difficult for us to trace that back, where there's many Americans, even some of those Americans that have had slavery in their family as well. They can trace their family back to to the beginning, but African Americans cannot do that because of again of our names being stripped from us, and then also us being sold away, our family being sold away from us, and us having no clue where they were for the rest of my ancestors the rest of their lives. And of course there is the also the thing of never ending that struggle to break the mental shackles of an oppressive way of thinking that many African Americans seem to struggle with nowadays, and they seem to pass that type of mentality down from generation to generation. So the question I would like to pose is, should a business or corporation that has profited from the wrongdoings to a group of people not have to answer for those atrocities, especially when those injustices still play a factor for the generations after them? And then after all, National Geographic has done a piece called "How Slavery Helped Build a World Economy." And they say that enslaved Africans in the United States also became important economic and political capital, important economic and political capital in the American political economy. So some will say no, descendants of African Americans, the descendants of African slaves, are not owed reparations. But I would like to bring to the forefront that the fact that American corporations like W.R. Grace and Company and Sherman-Williams were held responsible for the misdeeds that they did, and were ordered to compensate their victims and the heirs of their victims if the victim died. Likewise, Aaron Blakemore from Histories, the Thorny History of Reparations in the United States, informs us that monetary reparations were paid out for the surviving Japanese Americans in 1988 that were discriminated against during World War II intermittent camps, and to the Native Americans in 1946 for their loss of tribal lands and territories. So why are these groups entitled to compensation for the misdeeds at the hands of the United States government, but African Americans are not? Now, I'm not saying that compensation or reparations has to come in the form of money. There's other types of compensation that will be acceptable at an attempt to healing the wounds of injustice that's been done. I feel that African Americans, that it would be a great deal to help African Americans track down their lineage, and fund inner city outreach centers for the purpose of educating the community about about their history, and assisting with information about how to go to college and qualify for higher paying jobs. This would be very beneficial. It's important that we open up the discussion of the best ways to compensate this demographic of America. And I feel that once American takes the blinders off and wants to look at the systematic injustices done to African Americans throughout history of this country, then we can begin the true work of healing as a nation. Thank you.